Um, it's Saturday here. Some of your countries it's Sunday. And this is lesson 129 of a workbook of A Course in Miracles. Beyond this world, there is a world I want. Of course, you can bring to our attention the fact that we can't stop yesterday where we stopped at the idea that we just don't want the world. We must exchange it, and this is a glad exchange that we're going to make. For me, I think what this lesson, more than anything, brings to mind for me is the experience that I have lately of what communication is from beyond space and time directly to me, which does not take place in space and time, but takes place within me. And I know others of you who have had this experience will understand what I'm talking about. And there are some who having glimpses of this and maybe understanding it conceptually, may open to the experience of having communication that doesn't require concepts at all in its occurrence, and yet is total, whole, perfect, full, and leaves no shadow of a doubt as to what it is that's occurring, because it cannot be misinterpreted, having no concepts or words within it to interpret. And the line in the course, the line in the lesson is, yet even they, well, let's take a look at what it says. Is it a loss to find the world instead where losing is impossible? Now, that's a question that I think everyone should ask themselves at some point in time. Wouldn't I want a world where loss is impossible? And I'm going to tell you something. I want you to really, for this to be, what should I say, for this to reach and to allow it to be maximally efficient for you, what you really need to begin to get a sense of is how much we're dependent on things like loss so that we appreciate gain, and how much, the ebb and flow of what seems to be the ups and downs of life seem to be accepted as necessary in order to know you're alive, and to feel inside yourself when it's offered to you the idea of and this is something that I think it's important for me. It was important for me to look at. It's like when we think of the ideas, when we think of a place other than this, when we think of, say, even we imagine heaven, the best that we could come up with is an imagining or an imaging or a picturing or a thought of it based on this. And so when we hear changeless, we still relate changelessness to the world of in space. We associate it in our minds until our minds are sort of healed sufficiently. We associate the idea of changeless with what it would be like to have something to be changeless here. And many people come up with boring. When I first ran into the guys at Wisconsin, and it was at a Course in Miracles weekend, and the woman who was doing the teacher, she said something. She said, "You people don't want to go to heaven because you think it's boring." It dawned on me. It hit me. I knew in that statement, the way it hit me, and the way I understood it, that definitely was part of the problem. Part of the problem is that when we think of changeless, we think of boredom. We think of doing the same thing over and over again. A routine wherein which nothing changes, and it starts out happy, and then after the old man used to try to teach it, we all love opening night and wish opening night could be closing night because we hate long runs. We all hate to participate in long runs because they get tiring and they get boring. Jesus deals with it in the Course by saying, in the manual for teachers, rituals, routines, are dangerous because they become gods unto themselves. Now, it's not that they're dangerous in the sense of they can hurt you, because the Son of God, you can't be hurt, and this is an illusion, a nightmare, in which we think hurt, destruction, and that stuff is possible. But what he's talking about is when you slip slowly into the routine, into the ritual of it, it loses its meaning, but you're just replicating. This is what it means. Oh, this is beautiful. This is really beautiful. This is what it means. This is what it means when, who's calling? Okay. This is what it means when we say the ego is non-creative. The ego is non-creative because the most it's capable of doing is replicating the error in a myriad of ways and forms to try to confuse us that it's something else, when in fact it's the exact same thing. It just duplicates the same thing over and over and over again. It changes the form slightly, maintains the content so as to hide what it's actually doing. And over again, it just replicates. It's non-creative. It does not create. It's a replication of the original idea of separation in a myriad of forms, in an attempt to confuse us to think that there's something different going on, when in fact it's the same thing going on constantly. And until you begin to see that, it really is Groundhog Day, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. Now, we think like that. Human mind thinks like that because it's identified with the ego, and we need to be shown that there is another way of thinking, and therefore another way of experiencing, and therefore another world that I could want. And that's what this lesson is aimed at getting us to take a look at. When we begin to see that, we stop looking for it around us because we know what's going to happen. Now, the next reaction the ego brings us is, but if that doesn't happen, won't it be boring? No, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be unlike this world in every way. Now, I want to assure you that there's a communication that's taking place right now in you. Now, it may be clouded over, it may be dim, you may not be aware of it yet, but there is what this says: communication, unambiguous, and plain as day, remains unlimited for all eternity. If it remains unlimited for all eternity, then somewhere you are still within that communication, and you've just, in a sense, wasn't a loss of the perfect communication. It was a break in the communication. It wasn't a loss in your perfection. It was a break in the communication based on a distraction from you where the communication was taking place. You got lost in your own distraction and can't find your way back to where the communication is. And that's what needs to be restored. Now, I have these guides that call themselves the Tech Crew. They took me for a ride one day, and I used to do these things called blood runs, where I'd have to go and pick up blood at the at Red Cross Center and take it to a hospital. And I started to understand that these things it wasn't routine because it could happen any night or day. Whenever I was called on one of these things, it was because something was about to take place and I was going to be shown something. It became a way in which I was put into a space and time where I was focused enough to allow the communication to come through. And the way that this began for me was being told by just listen to the music. And as I listened to the music, it's like something happens in me and something merges, and the communication would open up, and I would get these things we call downloads. Well, one day there was no conceptuality to the download, and it was the most exciting communication that ever took place, because I knew it was unambiguous. I knew exactly what was taking place. I knew exactly what was going to take place, but there was no boredom in it. It was the constant excitement of the communication of the eternal to the eternal, of the infinite to the infinite, without concept whatsoever. You want to talk about a light experience? That's what we're talking about. And all that the Tech Crew said to me is, listen, all we are trying to do is reestablish communication. Once the communication is reestablished in you, there's no way, shape, or form you're going to deny it for much more than another instant, because it may disrupt the life that you think you're leading here in space and time, but certainly it's offering you another world and another life that beyond this one, you can see, experience, and know is much more real than anything's going on here, because the eternal and the infinite communication that takes place has no boredom in it whatsoever, because it's whole, perfect, complete, total, without the ability to have concepts in it. So therefore the concepts can't get old, and there is nothing in it that can be used against you. If that makes any sense. To the ego, Course in Miracles is candy for the ego. It gives you a whole nother set of concepts that you can utilize to help deny the teaching itself by thinking you know them through the intellectual necessity to understand in the old way. And the ego does the lessons, the ego reads the course. You think that you're learning something, and all you're doing is using this against you once again. That's why he says it's the atonement, which is the only thing that's not a double-edged sword, and it only works if you elect to use it. My advice is to use it. Don't try to understand what it is. Use it, stand on it, make it your practice, and as you come to open to the experience of what it is more and more, it starts with a little glimpse, and then the aperture gets used to it. Your aperture gets used to the communication, so you're no longer balking when it occurs, because it stops disturbing your life here in space and time, because finally you realize this is not life. That's life. That which is communicating and being communicated with, that's life. In one sense, there's not a direction to it because it's all imperfect, infinite, and eternal. But in another sense, you know it's not just you in your own mind. It's you being communicated with and you communicating to that which is eternal as the infinite nature of the communication of itself. You want to talk about enlivening your body? You want to talk about your daily bread and communion? That's what this is all about. Yet even they will be exchanged. Is it a loss to find all things that you really want and know that they have no ending? So the ego wants to say, well, you'll just be eating vanilla ice cream for all eternity. Who wants that? What happens when you want chocolate? As long as you keep it within the conceptual range and think you could understand it that way, you're always going to be tempted by the ego. And just like Jesus in his 40 days in the desert, at some point in time, you're going to say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Because the temptation to think that the ego has anything to offer you in the world is not any different than what Jesus went through in his 40 days in the desert, when he had to once and for all be offered everything and say, there's nothing here I want. It's all going to rust. It's all going to turn to crap. It's all going to turn to sand. I'm in the desert. Who do I have to see to get out of here? Obviously, not the devil, the ego. The temptation to think that there's something other than all there is, and imaging what the other is, and getting lost in your own imagination, wherein which nothing can be found but that which you have to lose eventually. Does this make any sense? Beyond this world, I am certain there is one that you want. And all the whining that people do about what they're going to lose, what they have to let go of, and what about the kids, and what about the dogs, and what about world peace, and what about all this other stuff. One glimpse of what I'm talking about, and you'll understand what about all those things, because nothing can be lost. You cannot lose love, because you are what love is. You could hide from it, you could deny it, you could try to make it into something else in a nightmare wherein which you could lose it to find it and think that there's joy in this ebb and flow, in the lack of constancy, which seems to make it so interesting. So you have these words, it's very interesting, this is very interesting, it's not interesting at all. After a while, it's really boring. Even that which you were interested in a minute ago becomes what boredom is now. And so you're off looking for something else. The world beyond this that you want does not contain any of those elements whatsoever, because it's not based on concepts. It's based on what is infinite, what is whole, what is perfect. There is no perfection in this world. The moment you are perfected, the world must get rid of you like it did your elder brother Jesus, because this world holds nothing that you want, and what you want is the perfect self that God created you to be, the reality in which you've always been living, along with God and all your other brothers, so that there's nothing left to do but smile, smile, smile at the unambiguous nature of the communication that's taking place, wherein which it's a constant flow of life itself. We want to talk about it as energy, that's okay. Stop conceptualizing these things. Don't conceptualize your experience. Try that on. Don't conceptualize your experience, because the minute you conceptualize it, you're subjecting it to the doubt of the conceptualized mind, and there's no reality in any concept. There's no reality in any concept. These concepts of the Course that you're being offered are not what you're being offered. You're being offered a systematic way of undoing your mind from the necessity to be conceptual whatsoever. The ego is preoccupied with concepts, and so you get as many concepts as you need to both hang the ego and hang the world up once and for all. This is exciting because the communication is all around. So when Jesus says to everybody, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and yet you see it not, that's what he's talking about. There's no place it cannot not be. It's eternal and infinite. This is what isn't. This body, the world, the form, that's what isn't. And yet even right here in that, because of the ever-present nature of the communication that you already are, you are God communicating love to love, so that as love that's been communicated to you, you could extend it eternally as he has given it to you for the purpose that he's given you. Now, if that doesn't get exciting, you don't need a form association. You just need to be the heart. You just need to be the soul with the attributes of heart and mind that aren't conceptualized into fleshy things in order to begin to experience this. Release yourself from all the concepts, including these, for a second. When you come back, these will make sense, and the other concepts that you were using to make sense of your life, you'll immediately discard because they'll have no value to you anymore. How far away from this are you who stay bound to this world? And yet how near are you when you exchange it for the world you want? You don't have to conceptualize the world you want. You just have to know you don't want this one. Stop imaging the one you want. Don't conceptualize your experience of the world that you want, and it will be given to you right here, right now. Because it is right here and right now. Nobody went anywhere. Is it a loss to find the world instead where losing is impossible? Well, does that mean there's only gain? It's ever increasing. The best I can tell you is that it's ever increasing, because what this is going to tell you is that words fail. It's ever increasing. It's ever increasing. It's ever increasing, because as you offer it your ever increasing certainty, you lay up in heaven the treasures that God gave you in the beginning, and they multiply, some tenfold, some 1,000-fold, some 1,000,000-fold, only to be given back to you in order to give away, to extend, not as concepts, but as love, the real thing, not broken apart into bits and pieces wherein which the meaning of the totality is lost, but recognized within the totality as not being able to be lost, because it's eternal, it's infinite, it's all that there is, and it is you, and it is here.